Dororo's backstory is officially revealed. It's predictably tragic, and it also features a major twist. Sharpen your blades and prepare yourselves for a massive twist. It's time to take a look at another episode of Dororo. I'm going to go ahead and put up that preemptive spoiler warning right now, as this episode definitely deserves it. Alright? You've officially been warned. This is the episode that finally gives us our official backstory on Dororo, his family, how he was separated from them, and of course a massive twist about the titular character himself. For those who've been following the series since the beginning, they've already been giving us some not-so-subtle hints about the backstory of Dororo, the fact that he was separated from his mother, and he even revealed that she died out of starvation. We actually get to see these events unfold in this episode as we get to see his full family, including his incredibly badass father, who was basically the leader of a gang of bandits who used to do raids on samurais and samurai armies. Basically, they were a group of badass Japanese Vikings. One thing that the Dororo anime series has been really good at is that showing that at this point in time in Japanese history, everything was incredibly tumultuous and violent. If you look at somebody the wrong way, they're probably gonna slice and dice your ass. And unfortunately, this all ends up happening to Dororo's clan. So Dororo and his family seem to be doing very good, living together, having a lot of camaraderie with everybody that lives within their group, except for one member who goes by the name of Itachi. And for those who don't know, the name Itachi actually translates out to weasel, so that actually kind of works out for this character. But he actually does end up betraying Dororo's clan by getting them set up with a group of samurai. When they actually try to attack them, they all end up losing a lot of their forces, and Dororo's father ends up getting his legs completely wrecked by a couple of arrows. It isn't until they eventually come upon another village which is being ransacked by samurai and they start to burn down the entire place that Dororo's father ends up meeting his end. But I have to say that him actually dying has got to be one of the coolest deaths that I've seen from just about any other anime series. How he basically went out like a boss completely fighting. I particularly liked this one scene where he was being attacked by this group of samurai and his father just picks up this sword and throws it at these guys' legs, and it ends up just slicing them off right at the heel. It's really disturbing. But then he ends up getting impaled by a spear, and then his father grabs onto another guy and basically bear hugs him so that the spear that's inside of his body ends up impaling him. It's all sorts of badass. So at this point, Dororo and his mother are on their own, and his mother, Ojiya, is incredibly loving, and she manages to put her own health at risk in order to keep Dororo alive. I think the scene that most exemplifies this is when they go to this samurai village, which is actually giving out rations and food to people, and lo and behold, Itachi, the guy who actually ended up betraying the entire clan that Dororo was a part of, is actually in charge of distributing all the food. And when his mother actually goes up to front to begrudgingly take this food, she doesn't have any means of actually holding on to it. They're serving soup. What does she do? She ends up quite literally cradling it in her hands to the point where they get completely burnt just so that she can feed Dororo. And eventually she ends up starving to death, and that leads us to where we are at this point in the series. Now, the backstory is definitely, I think, one of the biggest parts of this episode, but the one point that I think most people are going to be talking about is this big reveal at the very end of the episode. You see, the reason that this entire backstory is all kicked off is because at the very beginning we get to see that Dororo is suddenly fallen ill, and Hyakimaru actually ends up taking him to this village where he's looked after by this old nun. And at the very end of the episode, the nun actually reveals that Dororo is not actually a little boy, but a little girl. That's been the twist this entire time. They've made it seem as if Dororo is actually a boy, but no, he's actually been a little girl this entire time. Why they've been trying to hide this, and why they've been trying to make it a mystery, I still don't know. But when you actually go back and watch some of the episodes and see a little bit of Dororo's personality, it actually does kind of make sense. And the fact that Dororo is so young makes it really easy to actually hide that he actually is a female in the first place. Again, I'm not sure why any of this is actually happening, but it's a pretty big revelation about the character. So what's the rundown on this episode of Dororo? Another pretty hard-hitting episode, which finally gave us that backstory that I think that we were all waiting for. It was kind of predictable because we were getting some clues to it, and I did think that maybe they should have spent maybe a little more time delving into the fact that Dororo is a girl at the end of the episode, but still, nonetheless, it managed to do a pretty good job. I think the main takeaway from this episode, aside from Dororo being a girl, It's just showing how devastated he was after the loss of his parents, in particular his mother. I mean, his father's a badass, and we got to see a lot of him in action in this episode, and a lot of really cool and super ultra-violent scenes, but it's his mother who really, like, sold it for me, especially the scene when she actually, like, risked her health and had her hands burned, holding the soup inside of her hands. That was a really powerful moment, and honestly kind of shocked me to my core. Also, I really liked that finally, Hyakimaru is finally starting to communicate a little bit more. You get to see that at the beginning of the episode. While he's not so eloquent in his speech, he can actually now fully communicate with people, and it's thanks to that that he's actually able to help out Dororo, which I thought was really awesome. I also do love that he now has the brand new sense of smell, and he's always now stopping to smell the roses. The series has made it clear that when it loves to do flashbacks, it loves to do them in black and white. I'm not really sure if I'm a huge fan of that, but it at least lets the viewer know that yes, this is definitely a flashback, and it also allows them to have a lot of really deep contrast with color as well, such as the scene with the very red flowers. Everything just sort of pops off the screen every single time you see that, and of course it's very symbolic in that dime store Japanese symbolism kind of way. Some of the action in this episode was also incredibly brutal, a lot of that actually coming from Dororo's father as he was taking out people with his massive spear, but the way that he cut off those samurai's legs and the way that he killed that one guy by bear hugging him with the spear inside of his body, you gotta admit, that was just pretty freaking metal. To be perfectly honest, Dororo actually having a brand new gender really doesn't change much about the character, to be perfectly honest. It's still the same Dororo that we've always known, just, you know, now he's a girl. Like I said, I'm sure there's going to be more to this later on, or maybe there's not. I'm not really sure. We'll just have to wait and see. Frankly, I'm anxious to see more of Hyakimaru's story, which, at the very end of the episode, is implying, of course, we're going to see more of that. Daigo now knows that there's a samurai out there with prosthetics, so the story is certainly going to intensify, especially I'm waiting for that big confrontation between Dororo and his brother. So, there it is. That's my thoughts on the episode. I'm going to give this one right here a solid 4 out of 5. You guys need to check it out, but if any of you did watch the episode, I'd love to get your thoughts about it, and you can tell me all of them in the comment section below. Thank you all for watching this review. I'll see you all next time, and as always, stay down there, baby.